Now, around a year ago, I made a video on the Japanese TV series Ikebukuro Westgate Park, or IWGP, in which I reviewed and talked about why I think it's a show that should be checked out. However, I left out one big thing, that being the 1 hour and 35-minute TV special. Now, the reason I did stupidly was I heard it wasn't that great, and thus left it out. However, having watched it, I do think it is good, however it does fall short of the original series, and is somewhat just the basic plot structure follows Makoto after 3 years is tasked with solving the mystery of several homeless people being beaten and attacked, which in my opinion isn't that interesting. As whilst the original series had the murder mystery element which kept the plot moving and intriguing and allowed for the exploration of Ikebukuro's world, the special just feels a bit weird, especially come the reveal of what happens, which whilst I can see what they were trying to go for, does feel strange. There are positives however. The biggest one to me is the humour, which might even be better than the original, with the special incorporating much more surrealism, such as Makoto speaking to the Ikebukuro owl,
世話になったな
or whether it be the police characters and randomly being able to shout and echo their voices,
少々
言うな照れると
少々
which we see Takashi is able to do, and he's able to hear Jesse's voice from miles away as well. The very over-the-top actors' expressions, to a very funny cameo appearance from another Japanese TV show, Hazuru's Cat's Eye, in which the actor of Masa played the character of Master on the show, thus one of the characters calling out to Master.
Master!
Leading to the G-Boys mistakenly chasing him due to them believing they were members of the Black Angels.
つうか俺激似じゃね
Special does capture the same feeling with the original series from the unique, well-shot cinematography, which often used the whole frame with multiple things going on in the background, and captured the early 2000s, late 90s aesthetic quite well, much like the original show, which you can see just from the editing choices and framing of the show, such as speeding up certain shots or wide-angle shots. The show also does reframe the rivalry between the Black Angels and the G-Boys. Instead, them literally fighting, they instead are going to see who can make the best ramen, which is judged by this essential ramen guru, who isn't impressed by either groups. And when he makes them his ramen, they immediately try to hire him, and much like the original show, the final showdown is a test taste, instead of a fight, between the Black Angels and the G-Boys, in which Makoto is victorious despite not being on either side, as the girl trying the ramen instead wants Makoto's yakisoba, which is a strange idea, which almost works, is lacking one key component which I'll get to later on in the video. Now onto the negatives. Well, this plot just felt weird, especially the conclusion. Now in the first half of the show, Makoto and Masa go to a Rise concert, a popular Japanese metal band, in which some people get overwhelmed by the sound they play during one of their songs. Makoto and Masa eventually meet at the bowling alley, which Masa fun boys out at, and are introduced to each member of the band, and the sound director Sly. And it turns out the homeless attacks are being done by Sly and Jesse, the leader of the band, wherein Sly wants to create the ultimate sound, thus breaking several different bones to see what makes the best sound, which is revealed after Sly asks about the homeless attacks, and Makoto goes to Kasunori, tells him about the fact he used to run a club which Yamai, the killer in the first season, frequented, and Yamai tells him about a cave-in incident wherein a worker, having just broke several bones, said he heard the sounds of heaven before losing consciousness. Eventually, at one of their concerts, Makoto confronts them, in which he offers himself up in order for the band to use the sound again. However, he is saved by his friends and goes up on stage in an overly long final speech, much like the show's finale, in which he slowly but surely wins favour from the crowd, even hurting himself by breaking the bones in his arm. Show the audience the sound they're hearing and what it really is. He struggles to break his arm until Takashi appears and slams it, breaking his arm.
じゃあ3つ数えたらいきます。はい。
Makoto getting the child to shout, Ikebukuro is the best.
袋最高!
Whilst the original show was very goofy and over the top, the show did try to keep itself somewhat grounded to a certain extent. Whilst this just feels so strange, from the band cameo it just feels a bit weird, whilst music was a big part of the original show, getting a real band felt a bit off to me, and just like free promotion, rather than the writer trying to tell an interesting story. Which I know what it was going for, as how far does an artist go for art, and social issues such as homelessness, which the original did comment on, like the exploitation of dead people and corruption, but the band scenes were just not as interesting interesting due to them not being the reason why you want to watch the show. It's the other characters. Which brings me to one of the biggest problems with the special, the character omissions. There is also the reveal of Makoto's dad, being one of the homeless men, which is set up early on with similarities between the two characters. However, it doesn't really have that big impact which I think the writer wanted it to have. Perhaps due to the runtime which didn't allow for this element to be fleshed out due to time constraints, and once it's revealed it doesn't really act as a prevalent thing or is even really mentioned again, thus a rather strange thing to include in my opinion. Now, three big characters don't really appear in the special. One doesn't even get mentioned, the other one isn't just in a picture, and the other one does appear somewhat. Those characters being King, Detective Yokoyama, and Kana. Now Kana I'm not sure was the biggest miss, not that she was a bad character or actress, but in my opinion the show did a good job ending her story, though had she been available would have appeared no doubt. Ken Watanabe would have featured in a bigger role in my opinion, as he is mentioned several times, whether it just be his name or a picture of him.
こいつとどっちが好きだ
ですね。お二人とも歴代の首相として
And Kana and Yokohama didn't appear due to both of them being in The Last Samurai, which resulted in Ken Watanabe getting an Oscar nomination for his role in said film. Whilst King does appear, however, is barely in it. And when he appears, he's missing his signature cartoonish hair, instead covering it up with a head covering due to him having to shave his head for a different film. And thus it hampers the special, as King is the most popular character from the original show, for good reason. As he was a character me as of the year was excited and looked forward to watching. Whether it be the comedy or the serious stuff, it was played very well by Yosuke Kubozuka, who took originally a very serious character with the director's permission and able to turn him into a much more over-the-top, still somewhat believable gang leader, who fit the show's tone perfectly. Had he been in the special would have made it much better in my opinion, as we know he had two babies and would have been an interesting dynamic to see how he would have interacted with them as well as how he would have dealt with the ramen situation. However, we don't get that, and the episode suffers because of it.
Peace! Rise! King!
The actual final scenes of the special is quite funny and fitting, wherein Makoto reveals he is leaving Ikebukuro to work at his mother's fruit parlour. However, she tricks him and ends up back in Ikebukuro, and we get the reveal that he didn't actually break his arm, instead he used a chicken bone.
会いたかった会いたかった会いたかったやっぱ決めるときは僕のスタイルで決める
The show ending with Makoto's signature catchphrase, overall, whilst not as good as the original, it's still mostly good, worth a watch, as however unfortunately it is a missed opportunity in my opinion. To see how the characters change or lack thereof, however due to the story of the choice, the actors not being available, it does kind of feel somewhat disappointing. Though the actual ending scenes do feel bittersweet, a near perfect ending for the show, it is overall a disappointing way to end the show.